I often see comments like, how did a fantasy anime about an immortal elf ended up as the #1 on MyAnimeList? Or, sure, this spy anime isn't bad, but does it really deserve a score as high as Fullmetal Alchemist? And it really annoys me. In fact, scores aren't always useful and don't necessarily reflect a show's actual quality, they're just a snapshot of audience opinion. So does that mean scores are completely useless and should be ignored? Not really. First, it's important to understand what an anime scores on these databases actually represent and how it's determined. Here's how I see it. A score reflects how likely an average visitor to these sites is to enjoy a series. In my opinion, typical MyAnimeList user has seen around 100 series and tends to prefer action shonen. That's why they rate fantasy anime like Frieren, Fullmetal Alchemist, or Attack on Titan highly. They might also watch romance occasionally, especially well-known films like Your Name or A Silent Voice. They are also likely to watch popular isekai like ReZero or Mushoku Tensei. How do you spot this kind of user? Simple. If their scores don't stray too far from the average, they're your typical MyAnimeList user. The final score on these sites reflects the preferences of this average user, who makes up the majority. That said, just creating an account and logging a watched list means this average viewer isn't exactly a casual fan. That's why hugely popular anime like Sword Art Online or My Hero Academia don't rank at the very top. Many people who have only seen a handful of anime might consider these shows among their favorites, but they don't bother scoring them on MAL. There's a pattern. The more anime someone has seen, the lower their average score tends to be. For the average user with 50 to 150 series under their belt, scores tend to stay relatively high. For these viewers, many cliches still feel fresh, and they tend to watch well-known anime that are at least decent in quality. At this stage, viewer develops a more refined taste for anime, especially if they watch a lot of it. Their average scores start to drop as they come across their 10th generic isekai of the season or yet another anime about a high school boy adored by all the prettiest girls in the school. For most people, anime isn't their main hobby. Some prefer live action, some prefer games, and they watch 1 or 2 animes per season or per year. Since they haven't developed a strong taste for anime, many cliches that seasoned viewers find annoying still feel fresh and surprising to them. If they do rate anime, they tend to score them quite highly. If you look at active anime forums, you'll see that many users criticize scores and often don't understand how they are determined. In fact, on most forums, especially MyAnimeList, a large portion of users don't write or comment at all. For them, the site is just a way to track what they've watched, meaning they influence scores but not discussions. Their opinions are rarely heard as discussions are dominated by the vocal minority, those passionate enough about anime to actively engage in debates. These users are usually not part of the casual anime audience. It's important to understand that when I define a score as the likelihood that an average site visitor will enjoy the anime, it doesn't mean that the top-rated shows are the best, just the ones that appeal to the broadest audience. Almost everyone who has seen a few hundred anime had probably watched Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood, Steins Gate, A Silent Voice, titles that dominated the top MyAnimeList rankings for years, or Frieren, which currently holds the top spot. The anime community largely agrees that these shows deserve to be at the top. However, if you ask people who have seen 200, 500 or even 1000 anime about their favorites, most won't mention these anime. A common pick among these viewers is the Monogatari series, whose highest rated season previously sat at 26th place. For some, the heavy dialogue, unconventional direction, and intricate plot make it their favorite franchise. For others, those same elements are exactly why they avoid it. The same goes for Pure Magi Madoka Magica. Some consider it their favorite anime, while others drop it after the 3rd episode due to the plot twist. Others might quit after the 1st episode simply because they're not interested in magical girl anime. On MyAnimeList, some anime will always serve as the lowest common denominator. Shows or movies that appeal to the widest audience. These series typically avoid controversial topics, aren't comedies since humor is subjective, and tend to be shonen. For example, Frieren's current astonishing 9.31 score suggests that roughly 93.1% of average MyAnimeList users will enjoy it. Another key point when analyzing score sites is that you can't compare anime across different genres based solely on their scores. A higher score doesn't mean Spy Family is better than Legend of the Galactic Heroes or Berserk. These anime belong to different genres, target different audiences, and aim to deliver entirely different experiences. It's like comparing apples to oranges. Likewise, a high score in an unfamiliar genre doesn't guarantee you'll enjoy the show. If you love serious, mature anime like Berserk, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, and Monster, but dislike school settings and romance, a high score doesn't mean you'll enjoy Kaguya-sama. Of course, there's no harm in trying a series, but you shouldn't force yourself to like it just because its third season is highly rated. Anime caters to different audiences, so if a series isn't for you, that doesn't make it overrated trash. It simply means it's not for you. That also applies to niche genres that occasionally go mainstream. Take the Iyashikei genre, for example, a type of slice-of-life anime about girls doing cute things with no complex plot designed to evoke comfort and tranquility. Yet people often criticize this anime for having no plot or nothing happening, even though that's the whole point of the genre. That happened with K-On!, which drew in a non-target audience because of its high score. Many viewers didn't get it and found it boring since it's mostly just girls drinking tea and occasionally singing. The same applies to shoujo-ai and shonen-ai anime. Some people rate this anime lower simply because they feature LGBTQ+ characters even when it's clearly stated in the description. Sometimes this works in favor of certain genres, like idol anime or series based on Japanese games. Since these shows mainly attract dedicated fans, they're mostly rated by viewers who are already interested in the genre. As a result, these genres tend to have higher scores than they would have rated by a broader audience. For example, anime like Sangatsu no Lion, Chihaya Furu, and Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, focused on shogi, karuta, and rakugo respectively, have high scores despite their relatively small audience. Many hesitate to start a series about a subject they're unfamiliar with, which keeps this anime niche. Without cultural context, casual viewers might find them dull or uninteresting. The way people perceive anime also depends on its visual uniqueness, as seen with Kaiji and Kemono Friends. Viewers who start the series tend to be more tolerant of unconventional animation and focus on the story and direction instead. However, for many, art style plays a major role in how they rate an anime. It's also important to note that people use different scoring systems, making direct comparisons difficult. For some, scores start at 5, meaning a 7 is considered average. Others see a 4 out of 10 as normal, since they use the full 1 to 10 scale. Finally, factors like the first episode's impact, ongoing scores, and the novelty effect should be taken into account. A strong first episode or an exciting start often keeps a season's score high through sheer momentum. Many users sample a series, rate it without finishing, and leave scores that don't change over time. On the flip side, a slow start but a strong ending can still result in a low score if viewers drop the anime early. If you like what you see, don't forget to smash this like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Since most viewers rate anime after finishing it, scores for ongoing series tend to fluctuate. It's best to pay less attention to scores for ongoing shows. Likewise, scores often shift in the weeks after a show ends as more viewers catch up. Often, anime adaptations of manga or light novels start with high scores from dedicated fans before the wider audience has formed an opinion. For example, The Rising of the Shield Hero had an 8.65 score after just a few episodes. Gigok even made a video praising it as a fresh take on isekai, and the score remained high throughout most of the season. Nowadays, it is at 7.93. Made in Abyss is a great example of how scores can shift dramatically after a series concludes. Initially a niche series, its score jumped nearly half a point after strong final episodes, temporarily stabilizing at 8.9. As of now, it's at 8.64, illustrating how scores often decline over time. Demon Slayer was once considered overrated for having a score close to 9.0. Initially, it appealed to shonen fans and viewers who admired its high-quality animation. High score attracted lots of casual audience, which caused the score to drop. Over time, it faced criticism for its annoying characters and cliched plot. Scores can be influenced by existing scores, shaping viewers' expectations. Early expectations for a series are usually based on trailers and stuff announcements and tend to be low. If an anime exceeds expectations, viewers may rate it highly. On the other hand, a series with a 9.0 score might set expectations too high, leading to disappointment even if it's well made. This can lead to a lower score than if expectations had been neutral. An anime's final score is never set in stone and keeps changing. For instance, in 2006, the first season of The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya ranked 4th on MAL with an 8.7 score. But it has since dropped to 7.82, placing it at place number 942. Meanwhile, Cowboy Bebop had an 8.55 score in 2006, but has risen to 8.75 due to its classic status and frequent recommendations to newcomers. I've fallen for this trap a few times myself, but I've learned to take scores with a grain of salt. These days, I don't expect much from life, let alone anime. When looking at older anime scores, consider the Seinfeld Effect. Seinfeld, a sitcom that aired from 1989 to 1998, was once the gold standard of comedy and heavily influenced the genre. However, modern viewers used to today's sitcoms might find Seinfeld outdated or cliched. The phenomenon, sometimes likened to Shakespearean works, explains why older series tend to see their scores drop over time, as well as older anime styles feeling foreign to modern audiences. Another reason why so many seasons of Gintama and JoJo Part 7 rank so highly is the impact of sequels and series length. Often, the highest rated part of a franchise is the latest or final season. This happens because later seasons usually have fewer viewers, but if the quality stays consistent, the score tends to rise. Those who didn't enjoy or finish the first season are unlikely to watch later ones, meaning their low scores won't affect the sequels. As a result, long-running series often have high scores, though if quality declines, even the first season can be affected. The biggest example of this effect is Clannad, which has a 0.94 point difference between seasons. The first season is primarily slice of life with little plot progression, causing many viewers to drop it. Many expected Clannad to be a dramatic series with a gripping story, but were disappointed when it didn't meet those expectations, leading to a lower score. Viewers often make the mistake of watching a sequel just because it has a higher score, even if they didn't like the first season. More often than not, that results in disappointment. Long-running anime often receive high scores. On MyAnimeList, your score only counts if you've watched at least 20% of the series. For instance, Gintama's first season has 201 episodes, meaning you must watch at least 40 before scoring it. If you don't enjoy the series, you're unlikely to watch that much. With over 350 episodes across multiple seasons, Gintama is mostly completed by dedicated fans. This trend is even more apparent in manga, like Steel Ball Run, the 7th part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. To get to this point, you'd have to read nearly 750 chapters or watch over 150 episodes. By the time readers reach this part, they're likely dedicated fans, while those who dislike the earlier part's bizarreness have already dropped it. However, this sequel effect can also backfire. If viewers have high expectations for future seasons and they aren't met, the score can plummet. The same applies to spiritual sequels, where a returning creator sets certain expectations. For example, many expected Angel Beats to be Clannad 2 and Charlotte to be Clannad 3. When these shows failed to live up to Clannad, they faced backlash. Likewise, Gen Urobuchi's involvement in Aldnoah Zero drew extra attention. Since it was directed by Ei Aoki, the main director of Fate Zero, viewers had high expectations. However, Urobuchi only wrote the scripts for the first 3 episodes and the 12th episode of Season 1. Another reason to be skeptical of scores is mass influence. A high score might pressure you to rate closer to the average instead of your honest opinion. Don't fall for it. In recent years, bloggers have had a growing impact on scores. A notable case involved blogger Naxtaku, who urged fans to boost Ishizuku reviewer's score in retaliation against Funimation for removing it and labeling it hentai. Ironically, Ishizuku reviewers highlights the subjectivity of taste. One character prefers elves because they look young despite their age, while another likes elderly human women as they were considered teenagers by elves. This highlights how tastes vary across perspectives and why scores don't measure an anime's objective quality. Memes about Pingu in the City led people to give it a 10 as a joke, keeping it high in the rankings. Some users even create multiple accounts on MAL to bomb shows they dislike with low scores. This happened to Chihayafuru 3 after it surpassed Vinland Saga. An angry fan created multiple accounts to tank its score. They exploited the fact that the creator of Chihayafuru liked the tweets supporting Hong Kong, creating accounts like Chinese Patriot 12345 to falsely pin the blame on Chinese users. This sparked accusations that Chinese users were behind Chihayafuru's low score. As a result, some people avoided the series, assuming something unforgivable had happened, when in reality it hadn't. This also pushed MAL admins to accelerate updates to fight score manipulation. I hope viewers realize how pointless it is to use phrases from earlier in this text and instead think, this anime isn't for me, and that's okay. Words like overrated or overhyped don't actually describe an anime's quality, they just highlight the gap between expectations and reality. For many, overrated just means I didn't like it, when anything they enjoy is underrated. Ultimately, most people rate based on personal feelings and many adjust their scores over time. Scores are entirely subjective, proving that people have different tastes and rate accordingly. A score shouldn't dictate your enjoyment. If you like something with a low score, that's fine. It doesn't mean you have a bad taste. It simply means that this specific work of fiction resonated with you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Thank you.